Right, so the numbers out of Alberta are relatively high again, but the good news being is that the active cases actually went down. Again, 113 new cases, but the active cases went down. So that's good news. Hospitalizations were up by, I think, about two or three, but again, that's not a big deal. Um, Testing, again, 8,600 tests. So again, there's a lot of tests being done. Again, that's something to keep in mind too when you hear about these numbers. Again, the testing has gone up even from the numbers from like a month ago. So that is definitely part of the reason. Not to mention, like I say, there's people that are testing positive multiple times, all this kind of stuff. Again, and it is in specific areas. I mean, the numbers out of Edmonton are steady. The numbers out of Calgary have gone down a little bit, but they're still pretty high compared to some other areas. The central zones definitely another area that's went up, but everywhere has went up. It's just a matter of pretty well everywhere, but Calgary and the central zone are the ones that have gone up the most. And again, when you hear central zone too, there's probably some specific areas that have gone up because it's a pretty big area. So keep that in mind as well. The numbers out of the states, again, pretty much the same as yesterday. The cases are about steady, but again, the death numbers were up again, so that's not good news. My guess is that the numbers will be down on the weekend, that they usually tend to go down on the weekend for whatever reason, maybe less testing. I don't know exactly what it is, but that's kind of how it seems to work. So I would look out for that. But again, when you see these numbers out of the states, you got to know in the back of your head, like I say, they are manipulated to some degree. There's people that, I mean, in many ways, there's people that are dying with the virus, not from the virus. There's people that are being counted multiple times. There's places that are clearly inflating their numbers. I mean, Florida has been caught doing that. There's several areas that have been caught doing that. So again, that's the one thing that you have to keep in mind too. Again, so the main things I wanted to get into here was again to talk a little bit more about the whole school closures thing, and should we be reopening, should we not be reopening? And again, I understand the whole fact that again public schools are largely just brainwashing camps. They don't really do a whole heck of a lot to actually teach people, but that's kind of besides the point. That's a different topic. The When it comes to the topic of should schools be reopened, well, absolutely. There's no reason to looking back on it. They never even should have closed down in the first place. So again, aside from again, people always point out, oh, my kid has asthma, or teacher with with an underlying health condition. Again, there is some rare exceptions, but for 99% of people, there's nothing to be worried about. um, for anybody, I mean, for any student who doesn't have an underlying health condition, for any teacher under 50-ish that doesn't have an underlying health condition, they should go back to life as normal. For everyone else, which again is a very small percent of the population, that's where we're going to have to figure some things out, because again, I'm not an expert on the topic. I don't know what should be done, but the one thing I do know again is that literally one person under the age of 20 died in Canada, and they had an underlying health condition. And I mean, you look at people under the age of 50, the flu is more likely to kill them. So again, no one ever has even suggested even thinking about closing down because of a bad flu year, which recently happened 2 years ago. Um, so again, suggesting that, even like I say, even suggesting that we should be closing down is an absolutely asinine position. Now again, like I say, I do think that schools, the brainwashing aspect of public schools should be massively reformed and massively clawed back. But again, when it comes to the reality is that schools should be reopened. The only reason that parents want to not send their kids back is because they are paranoid to the nth degree, or again, there is some under rare circumstances that have underlying health conditions. But again, the other thing that needs to be brought up too is that let's say your kid does have underlying health conditions. Asymptomatic spread is incredibly rare. This is another thing that so many people still believe, that the virus is bad because there's a bunch of asymptomatic people going out in public and spreading it. That's not how it works, at least the science that we currently know of. And again, literally the WHO has cited this too. So people saying, oh, it's a conspiracy. No, it's literally the godly WHO has admitted this, that again, asymptomatic spread is incredibly rare. And not to mention that too, the kids spreading it to adults is also incredibly rare. So again, even if you have an underlying health condition, you're a student or a parent or a teacher, it's still incredibly rare. But should precautions be taken? Yes, but do we need to shut things down? Absolutely not. Do we need to force people to wear masks? Absolutely not. I mean, like I said, the whole mask thing, again, the people that say, oh, I'm comfortable sending my kids back, but as long as they're wearing masks, again, like, how stupid can you possibly be, people? For starters, there's no evidence that wearing a mask if you're not sick does more positive than negative. There's no scientific evidence whatsoever to back that up. Even Theresa Tam has said that. She may have changed her mind recently, but for the first part of this pandemic, every expert in the world said don't wear a mask unless you're sick. Every expert said that. Now it's been changed because they can't sell the public on the lockdowns anymore, so they have to sell the public on we're going to force you to wear a face mask everywhere you go. But again, no one has ever provided any scientific evidence that wearing a mask if you're healthy actually does anything. Even if you're sick, there's still negative side effects that need to be taken care of. So again, and the other thing too is that the debate on about whether or not masks work a lot of times is completely irrelevant for the simple point that 95% of people don't wear masks properly, especially kids. I would say probably 99% of kids won't be wearing a mask properly. Number one, there's no evidence that the cloth masks work. There's literally no evidence whatsoever. There is some evidence that the N95 and the medical grade ones work. Um, but again, there's other problems that spring up because of wearing the mask again. And the other thing too is that if you're constantly touching, even if you touch your face like once, let alone constantly be touching it, you completely defeat the purpose of wearing a mask. If you go to get a drink of water and you pull it up and or pull it down and pull it back up when you're done, again, completely defeating the purpose. Again, so there's so many reasons why, like I say, 99% of people don't wear a mask properly. And the other thing too is that they're bringing upon themselves negative health effects for no reason, literally for no reason. And that's the other thing too is that if you have a massive amount of the population that's wearing masks all the time and we have a bad flu season, well, guess what? They're going to get hit even where it's going to be an even worse flu season because we have so many people with compromised immune systems again. So the whole mask thing makes no sense. Like I say, if you're sick, probably yeah, wear a mask. But I mean, when you're on your own, when you're driving around, only when you're out in public, and probably only indoors too. Like if you're outside at a park or something like that, like it makes no sense. Like it literally makes no sense. And like I say too, most people, the vast majority of people, don't wear a mask properly, thus making it completely pointless. So again, that's just something I wanted to point out. This is from Ben Shapiro, and he responds to a headline by saying Florida's virus cases surge past New York's as U.S. deaths hit 1,000 for fourth day. These headlines are insanely dishonest. At the height of the pandemic in New York, the state was performing perhaps 15 to 20,000 tests per day. Florida is performing 55 to 60,000 tests per day. Again, that's something that needs to be taken into account here. The states literally tested like 800,000. They did like 800,000 tests the other day. They're doing an insane amount of tests. So again, when people see these massively high numbers, they don't even take into account the amount of tests being done. I mean, I don't know how many tests Canada is doing, but my guess is that it's not around 80,000. I mean, we're about a tenth of the population, but I don't think we're doing that many. But I may be wrong because again, Alberta did 8,600, but again, that would take about 10 provinces doing an average of that. Ontario's probably doing more than us. Quebec maybe, but other than that, I don't think anyone's probably doing even close. Maybe BC, but aside from those four provinces, I bet you there isn't a province doing more than a couple thousand. So again, that's another thing you have to keep in mind too, that you see all these Canadians talking about how much better we're doing than the States, but the reality is that it's really not that much of a difference. And again, the other reality too is that a lot of the numbers are inflated in the States and in Canada to a degree as well. But again, that's something just to keep in mind that you have to take into account the testing. You have to take into account the testing. This is from Brian York on Twitter. Ezra Levant retweeted it saying, um, I mean, he responds to an ABC News headline saying protesters in California set fire to a courthouse, damaged a police station, and assaulted officers after a peaceful demonstration intensified. And Brian York here says, if a peaceful demonstration intensified, would it become more peaceful? Again, in theory, it should. But again, the reality is that I really don't get this. I mean, I do get it, but I don't understand how they can, with a straight face, say this kind of stuff. That on one hand, after all the garbage that went on, I mean, not it wasn't garbage, but the race baiting stuff was the garbage I'm talking about after the George Floyd and the Atlanta case and all this stuff. Um, After all that stuff happened, there was violence going on, and the mainstream media narrative was, and the Black Lives Matter narrative especially was, oh well, yeah, there's some violence going on, but that's only because it's it's been long overdue. It's called for. The time for peaceful protests is over. We don't have. It's not possible. Like, in other words, they were, in other words, in a nutshell, justifying violence. But on the other hand, they literally bend over backwards to try and pretend like it's a peaceful protest, that peaceful protests are going on, especially in Portland as well. But again, like, which one is it? Is the violence justified, or are they peaceful? Like, again, like, I really don't understand how they can say with a straight face this kind of stuff. Now, again, the reality is that it's so obviously violent, it's not even funny. But again, there is plenty of people. I mean, Jerry Nadler, AOC, these kind of people that literally are saying with a straight face that it's peaceful. And AOC saying, oh, crime is only up because people are starving and they got to steal this. No, like, if you're starving, why in the world are you murdering people? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, walk into a store, walk out with something. You don't need to kill someone to do that. Like, again, like, I mean, in a lot of these states, they don't even I mean, California, if you walk into a store and steal something, unless it's over $1,000, I believe, the cops won't even do anything. They won't even do anything. So basically, I mean, technically it's not legal. It's just decriminalized. And like I say, in California, if you steal something, especially if you're homeless, the cops won't even do anything. So it's not legally legal, but technically it's perfectly fine to steal something if it's under $1,000 in California, because the cops won't do anything. Again, so the idea that you need to kill someone to do this kind of stuff doesn't make any sense. Like, again, the violence is intensifying, I think, for many reasons. I mean, number one, I think it's the ramifications of the lockdowns, and that many people have lost their jobs and have nothing left. I mean, they probably lost any savings they have. They're on the brink of being evicted from wherever they're living. They can't pay their bills. Not only that, too, the mainstream media has completely whipped people up into a frenzy over this stupid racist garbage stuff. That most of it is just complete BS, too. That's the other thing I pointed out with George Floyd. Um, is there any evidence that the cop that killed George Floyd was racist, aside from the fact that he was white and George Floyd was black? Where's the evidence? Because again, um, why in the world are we assuming that, oh, if a white guy kills a black guy, that must be racism? Why do we do that? Where is the evidence I mean, there may be evidence that I'm not aware of. I'll admit that. But if there was, I'm sure, like, if this guy had a history of posting racist stuff on social media, or following actual racists on social media, not the make believe ones that the mainstream media likes to point out, or actually, said racist stuff at work. Like, where are the witnesses saying, yeah, this guy, told me racist stuff all the time? Where is the evidence from that? And I think the reality is that there is none. That it was just wrong place at the wrong time. Not only that, the Minneapolis Police Department had approved the whole knee on the neck thing, which it definitely throws a wrench into the whole murder charge. I think that at best it's negligent manslaughter at best. He could even get off that too, and that's the other problem too with this kind of stuff, is that if there is a just legal system to any degree, the guy that killed George Floyd's gonna get off, not because he's innocent. I don't think he's innocent, but because it's not second degree murder. It may not even be manslaughter. Again, like I say, I don't think he did the right thing. I don't think he should have did what he did. But the reality is, again, it's not murder too, for sure. It may not even be manslaughter. But again, I mean, either way, it's not gonna be a good ending, because if he gets convicted, then it's a sign to any cop out there that even if you do something that your police department approved of, you still could get charged. So again, it's only going to make crime worse. Now, if he gets off, there's going to be rioting again, and the mainstream media is going to pretend like it's peaceful. So again, it's a lose-lose scenario. Either way, whatever happens, I mean, I think that it should be probably a lesser charge. Um, maybe negligent manslaughter. Again, I'm not a legal expert. I don't know exactly what it'd be charged with, but I know it's not murder two. Murder two is like, someone lips you off, or insults you in a bar, and you come back with a gun or a knife and kill them. Or someone cuts you off in traffic and you pull out a gun and shoot them. Something like that. That's murder too. Um, that's not what there was like. And it makes no sense too that if you're gonna kill someone, intentionally kill someone, why would you do it on camera, and not only that, from multiple angles? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if the cop in Minneapolis actually was a racist and he wanted to go kill someone, why not do it when you're off duty? Why not do it in a back alley somewhere? It makes no sense. So again, that's just something I wanted to point out. But again, getting back to this whole thing, the whole mainstream media bending over to pretend that it's peaceful is absolutely disgusting, if you ask me, because it clearly isn't. And that's the thing too. Like, I mean, getting to the next point here. From Evan Kilgore here. Night 60 of the peaceful protests in Portland, which again aren't actually peaceful. Rioters are throwing exploding Molotov cocktails at federal agents and the courthouse. I don't think these people just want some bread, like AOC suggests. Again, this is the problem too, that these aren't peaceful. And the other thing too is that, what do these people even want? Because you look at, in Seattle, or was it Seattle? Was it Portland? I don't know which city it was, but one of these big lefty cities, these far leftists, they wanted, yep, let's cut half the police's budget. Um, Minneapolis too, even, I think. Um, and the city council approved of it, and they're still rioting. Like, again, this is the problem with these people too, and it's like I've been saying for forever now. I mean, as long as I've been making videos, these people will not give in. They are going to keep taking and taking and taking, and eventually you end up with communism. Eventually you will end up with communism, because these people will not give in. They will never admit they're wrong. That's why the communist body count, or the body count of far left ideologies, is so large throughout the last 100 years or so, is because they never admit they're wrong. They never will admit they're wrong. Again, over 100 million bodies, but yet look at how many people are socialists and communists these days. Again, they will never admit they were wrong. It doesn't matter if a billion people die. They still will cling to their ideology. Again, so that's something to point out, and it's not going to change too. Like, what the solution to this is, I don't know. I think that the perfect solution is, even though it's kind of unfeasible for BS reasons, but it's to have separate countries and separate areas. That if these far leftists want no police and socialism and no free speech and whatever they want, they can have it. But have your own country. This is exactly why I support Wexit. Again, not even like I say, it's the same thing for Quebec too. It's the same thing for Quebec. If there was a vote, a Canada-wide vote for Quebec to separate, I would vote for it in a heartbeat. Not because I mean, I do kind of hate Quebec, but not for the same reasons. The main reason being is that I know that there's a lot of people in Quebec that want their own country, because they want a French, let's not have the whole English, imposed on us, all that garbage. Um, they want to have a French, area, and they want to have something where the rest of Canadian culture isn't imposed on them. I understand that. So again, I would strongly support Quebec leaving, because the people that want that would get exactly what they want, and the people that live in Quebec that don't want that can either choose to stay or they can choose to move. And that's the same thing with Wexit. And it's the same reason why the leftists have they don't even believe in their own ideology, because if the left actually believed in their own ideology, they would be the biggest Wexit supporters in the world. If CBC actually believed what they believe, like CBC should be promoting Wexit. They should, because their goal is to promote the East, to support the left, the NDP and the Liberals. So if they actually believed that, they would be supportive of it. But they don't. All these socialists and leftists know, and if they don't know consciously, it's unconsciously, that the only way, again, it's the Margaret Thatcher thing, that the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. And the other thing with socialism too is that you run out of other people's money. But the other thing they do is that they can't print money anymore. I mean, you look at Venezuela; their money's so worthless because they've overprinted it so much that it's literally, you could see like tons of money just littered in the streets like garbage. Again, that's what's going to happen in Canada eventually at some point too. Like, don't think people have this, oh, it's not going to happen to us fallacy. It will happen to us. So again, the solution to, I mean, the problem is that the realistic solution is never going to happen. I mean, the solution would be to send in the feds and to clean things up, to restore rule of law. But the reality is that let's, I mean, the states, let California and Oregon, and let them have their own leftist utopia. If they want to do one in New York and any other areas, yeah, let them do that too. But the rest of us, let's have the free market in Alberta and Saskatchewan. You can have socialism in the rest of Canada. And that's the thing too, is that anybody who doesn't want the free market, you can go ahead, go have socialism in the rest of Canada. And the people who don't want socialism in Ontario, Quebec, and the rest of Canada, come to Alberta and Saskatchewan. It's not a complicated topic. Again, the reality is that the socialists and the leftists don't actually even believe in their own political ideology, so that's why they don't want Wexit. So anyway, I've talked for quite a while here. I'm going to leave the video there. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, check me out on Twitter, BitChute, and Parlay. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.